Right now, as you are watching this video, there are over 70 million Americans whose monthly income, their rent money, their grocery money, their medication money, is caught in the middle of one of the most aggressive federal budget debates this country has seen in decades. And most of them have no idea what is actually happening. Not because they are not paying attention, but because the people who should be explaining this clearly are not. Welcome back. If you are new here, this channel covers Social Security policy, federal benefit programs, and the legislation that affects everyday Americans. If you receive SSI, SSDI, or any Social Security benefit, or if someone you love does, then what I am about to walk you through over the next 20 minutes may be the most important policy breakdown you watch all year. Because today we are talking about DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and its increasingly loud presence in conversations about Social Security disability benefits. We are going to explain what is real, what is rumor, what is confirmed, and what is genuinely worth monitoring. No fear-mongering, no clickbait spin, just facts, analysis, and clarity. Let's get into it. What is DOGE, and why is it suddenly in this conversation? First, let's establish what we are actually dealing with. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is not a traditional federal department in the way that, say, the Department of Education or the Department of Veterans Affairs functions. It does not have a cabinet secretary confirmed by the Senate in the conventional sense. It is, at its core, an advisory and operational body charged with identifying federal spending that it considers wasteful, duplicative, or inefficient, and recommending or implementing reductions. Now, the reason that matters to this conversation is straightforward. Social Security, including Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, and Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, represents one of the largest categories of federal spending in the entire United States budget. We are talking about a program that pays out over $1 trillion annually when you combine all Social Security benefit categories. When an entity whose stated mission is to cut government spending looks at the federal budget with a red pen, Social Security is one of the biggest items on the page. That does not automatically mean cuts are coming, but it absolutely explains why beneficiaries are scared, why the internet is flooded with speculation, and why this conversation is happening right now in March of 2026. Here is something important I want you to understand before we go further. DOGE does not have the unilateral legal authority to eliminate or reduce Social Security benefits on its own. Social Security is a statutory program. It is governed by federal law, specifically the Social Security Act, and changing benefit amounts, eligibility rules, or funding structures requires an act of Congress. The President cannot simply order SSDI payments to stop. An efficiency board cannot unilaterally restructure SSI. That is a foundational legal fact that a lot of people online are either unaware of or are deliberately leaving out of their content. But, and this is critical, that does not mean DOGE's involvement carries zero risk. It means the risks are different from what many headlines are suggesting. Let me explain. What are the actual proposed changes? Breaking down the concerns. When we talk about DOGE cuts to SSI and SSDI, we need to be very precise about what is actually being discussed, because there are several different categories of concern, and they are not the same thing. Category 1, administrative and operational cuts. What DOGE has already been involved in documented, verifiable ways, is targeting the administrative infrastructure of federal agencies. We have seen significant workforce reductions at agencies across the federal government, and the Social Security Administration has not been immune to that pressure. Reports from early 2026 indicate that the SSA has been facing pressure to reduce its workforce and consolidate field offices. This is not a theoretical concern. SSA field offices have already been subject to scrutiny. The agency, which handles millions of disability applications, benefit verifications, appeals, and eligibility reviews annually depends on human staff to function. When you cut staff at the SSA, even if you never change a single line of benefit law, you create processing delays. You create backlogs. You create a situation where eligible recipients wait longer to receive benefits they are legally entitled to, where appeals take months longer, where people who deserve SSDI are denied simply because the system does not have enough capacity to properly evaluate their claims. This is a real and documented risk, and it is one that rarely gets the attention it deserves. Category 2, budget reconciliation discussions. In Washington, budget reconciliation is the legislative process through which Congress passes major fiscal legislation. In 2026, there are active discussions, not yet passed into law as of this recording, around whether federal benefit spending categories, including Medicaid, SNAP, and to a lesser degree SSI, should face what budget analysts call spending caps or program reforms. These discussions are ongoing. They are politically contested, and they are not the same as a formal policy that has been enacted. But they are real conversations happening among real legislators, and SSI, which is means tested and funded through general federal revenue rather than the Social Security Trust Fund, is more vulnerable to these discussions than SSDI. I want to pause here and address something directly. If you have seen videos or social media posts saying, DOGE is cutting your SSDI check next month, that, as of our recording date, is not an accurate statement of current policy. That is speculation presented as fact. And for a 62-year-old widow who depends on that check to pay for her blood pressure medication, that kind of misinformation is not just annoying, it is genuinely harmful. That is why we are here. Let's keep going. The critical difference between SSI and SSDI. Because so much of the public discussion conflates these two programs, I want to take a few minutes to clearly explain what SSI and SSDI actually are, because their vulnerabilities to budget cuts are fundamentally different. SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. SSDI is an insurance program. It is funded through payroll taxes, the FICA taxes that workers and employers pay throughout a person's working life. When you look at your pay stub and see that Social Security deduction, a portion of that goes toward disability insurance. To qualify for SSDI, you must have a sufficient work history. Generally, you need 40 work credits, with 20 earned in the last 10 years before your disability began, though younger workers may qualify with fewer credits. You must have a medical condition that meets the SSA's strict definition of disability, meaning it must be severe, documented, and expected to last at least 12 months or result in death. The monthly benefit amount under SSDI is based on your lifetime earnings record. It is not a flat welfare payment. It reflects what you paid into the system. Now here is why this matters for the budget debate. SSDI is funded through its own dedicated trust fund, the Disability Insurance Trust Fund. It is not simply pulled from general federal revenue in the same way that discretionary spending is. Cutting SSDI is therefore politically and legally more complex than cutting a discretionary program. SSI, Supplemental Security Income. SSI is a different animal. It is a needs-based program funded through general federal revenue, meaning it competes for funding in a way that SSDI, with its dedicated trust fund, does not. SSI provides monthly payments to individuals who are age 65 or older, blind or disabled, and who have very limited income and resources. As of 2026, the federal SSI benefit rate is just over $943 per month for an individual, with many states adding a supplemental payment on top of that. The asset limits for SSI are notoriously strict. Individuals can have no more than $2,000 in countable resources, couples no more than $3,000. These limits have not been meaningfully updated in decades, creating a situation where even modest savings can disqualify someone from the program. Because SSI is funded through general revenue, it is more directly exposed to federal budget pressure. If Congress is looking for places to reduce spending through reconciliation, SSI is more susceptible than SSDI to legislative modifications. This distinction between the insurance-based SSDI and the welfare-adjacent SSI is crucial context that most of the online commentary completely ignores. What experts and policy analysts are actually saying. Now let's talk about what the people who study this for a living are actually saying, because the expert community's view on this situation is significantly more nuanced than what most YouTube videos or Facebook posts are conveying. Policy analysts at organizations like the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, and the Brookings Institution have all in various ways been tracking the intersection of the DOGE initiative and entitlement spending. Here is the consensus view, roughly summarized. First, there is genuine concern about SSA administrative capacity. The disability determination process was already under strain before the current political environment. Adding workforce pressure to an already stretched agency creates real bottlenecks that harm real people. This is the concern that experts consider most immediately impactful. Second, the risk to SSDI from direct benefit cuts is considered lower in the near term, primarily because of the trust fund structure and the enormous political difficulty of cutting disability benefits to working age and disabled Americans who paid into the system. However, analysts note that longer-term projections around the disability insurance trust fund solvency, projections that have been discussed for over a decade, do create a legislative pressure point that could eventually force congressional action. Third, SSI reform is more politically viable. There have been bipartisan proposals over the years to update SSI's asset limits, which have been widely criticized as outdated and punishing. But the concern now is that in a climate focused on spending reduction rather than program improvement, any SSI legislation that moves through Congress could result in tighter eligibility rather than expanded access. Fourth, and this is something that experts emphasize strongly, the speed and opacity of some DOGE-related administrative actions make it difficult for the public to distinguish between confirmed policy and internal agency process changes. This opacity itself is a governance concern that transcends political affiliation. I want to acknowledge something here. Some viewers watching this may be frustrated. They may feel that the system is being dismantled piece by piece while the press talks in abstractions. That frustration is legitimate, and it deserves to be taken seriously, not dismissed. But the answer to legitimate frustration is accurate information, not more panic. Because panic leads to decisions that hurt real people. It leads to people calling their bank trying to close accounts. It leads to families making financial decisions based on rumors. And the people who suffer most from that panic are always the most vulnerable. So let's continue being precise. The misinformation problem, why this topic explodes online. Here is a truth that does not get said enough in this space. Fear sells. A video that says your SSDI payment is being cut next month, here's what they're not telling you, will get 10 times the views of a video that says, here is an accurate policy analysis of proposed changes to SSA administrative capacity. That is not a new problem. But in the context of disability benefits, where the audience is often elderly, medically vulnerable, sometimes isolated, and almost always financially stressed, the consequences of misinformation are particularly severe. We have seen this pattern before, during COVID, during every major federal budget debate. Whenever Social Security comes up in political conversation, a wave of content floods the internet with exaggerated or outright false claims about cuts, checks being frozen, or eligibility being revoked overnight. What actually happens? The SSA issues a clarification. The policy discussed in those videos either did not pass, was not what the video said it was, or applied only in a limited context. But by then, millions of people have already experienced weeks of anxiety, and some have made irreversible financial decisions based on bad information. I am telling you this not to criticize other content creators broadly, but to give you a framework for how to evaluate what you are seeing. When you see a video or post claiming dramatic SSI or SSDI changes are imminent, ask yourself these questions. 1. Is this citing a specific piece of legislation, an SSA announcement, or a Congressional Budget Office report? Or is it citing reports say and sources claim? 2. Does the claim require DOGE or the executive branch to do something that legally requires congressional action? If so, it cannot happen unilaterally, no matter what the headline says. 3. Can you find the same claim reported by the Associated Press, Reuters, the official SSA website, or a peer-reviewed policy organization? If not, apply significant skepticism. 4. Is the video monetized through ads or through selling a benefit guide or appeal assistance service? If so, that financial incentive is worth factoring into your evaluation of the content. These are not cynical questions. They are the basic tools of information literacy, and right now, in 2026, they may be the most important tools you have. The real risks beneficiaries should actually monitor in 2026. All right, we have covered the background, the legal framework, the expert perspectives, and the misinformation landscape. Now let's talk about what you, if you are an SSI or SSDI recipient, or a family member of one, should actually be watching for in 2026. Risk 1. SSA staffing and processing delays. This is, in the opinion of most objective policy analysts, the most immediate and concrete risk to beneficiaries right now. If the SSA is operating with a significantly reduced workforce, whether through voluntary departures, forced reductions, or office consolidations, the practical experience of navigating the system will deteriorate. What does that look like in real life? Longer hold times when you call the SSA, slower processing of initial disability applications, extended wait times for appeals hearings, which were already averaging over a year in many parts of the country, delays in processing address changes, direct deposit updates, and representative payee verifications. None of this changes your legal entitlement to benefits, but it changes your experience of receiving them. And for someone who cannot afford a missed payment, the difference between a check arriving on time and a check delayed by 6 weeks can be the difference between stability and crisis. What to do? Keep copies of all your SSA correspondence. Document every call you make, the date, time, and name of the representative if given. If you are in the middle of a disability application or appeal, consider whether working with a disability attorney or advocate, many of whom work on contingency, is appropriate for your situation. Risk 2. SSI asset limit and eligibility discussions. There is active policy discussion about SSI's structure. Some of that discussion is genuinely reformist. There are bipartisan proposals to raise the absurdly outdated $2,000 individual asset limit, which has not been substantively updated since 1989. That reform, if it passed, would be broadly positive for recipients. But in the current fiscal climate, there is also risk that any legislative vehicle addressing SSI could include provisions that tighten eligibility, reduce benefit amounts for certain categories of recipients, or impose new means testing requirements. What to monitor? Watch the progress of any federal budget reconciliation bill in 2026. If a bill moves through the Senate or House Budget Committee and includes provisions related to SSI, that is the moment to pay close attention and to contact your congressional representatives. Risk 3. Medicaid interactions. Many SSI recipients automatically qualify for Medicaid. If Medicaid faces significant structural changes, which has been a topic in the 2026 budget debate, the downstream effects on people who receive SSI can be substantial, even if their SSI benefit itself is untouched. Medical coverage and disability benefits are deeply interconnected for millions of Americans. Risk 4. Cost of living adjustment, COLA policy. Each year, Social Security benefits receive a cost of living adjustment tied to the Consumer Price Index. There are periodic political discussions about changing the index used to calculate COLA, switching from the current CPIW to what is called the changed CPI, which typically produces lower adjustment figures. This is a long-standing policy debate that surfaces regularly. If adopted, it would not cut your existing benefit, but it would mean your benefit grows more slowly over time, effectively reducing its real purchasing power across years. This is not a confirmed policy change as of this recording, but it is worth understanding because it is the kind of slow-motion change that is easy to miss. What is confirmed, what is speculation, and what to watch. Let me give you a clean summary. Think of this as your reference framework. Confirmed as of March 2026. The SSA has faced administrative pressure in line with broader federal workforce reduction initiatives. Field office operations and staffing have been subjects of internal and external scrutiny. Processing times for disability applications continue to be a documented concern. These are real operational challenges with real consequences for applicants and recipients. Under active discussion but not enacted. Legislative proposals that could affect SSI funding, eligibility, or structure are part of ongoing federal budget conversations. No bill directly cutting SSI or SSDI benefit amounts has passed into law as of our recording date. The budget reconciliation process is ongoing, and its final shape is not yet determined. Speculation without confirmed basis. Claims that DOGE will directly order SSDI checks to stop or be reduced. This is not how the law works, and there is no verified executive action to this effect. Claims that SSI is being eliminated. This is not supported by any credible legislative source. Claims of specific cut percentages applied to individual benefit amounts. No such policy has been enacted. Write that down if you need to, or come back to this part of the video. Confirmed, under discussion, speculation. That framework, simple as it is, will protect you from making decisions based on information that does not correspond to reality. What beneficiaries should do right now. I want to speak directly to the person watching this who receives SSI or SSDI. Who woke up this morning and saw something on Facebook or YouTube that scared them, who has been sitting with that fear, wondering if their check will be there next month, wondering if they need to call someone, wondering if they need to panic. Here is what I want you to hear. Your benefits are legally protected by federal statute. No executive order, no efficiency advisory board, no political figure has the unilateral power to eliminate your monthly payment. That does not mean the system faces no pressure. It does. But the kind of fear-based response that some content is designed to provoke, that response does not protect you. Information does. So here is what I want you to do. Number 1, bookmark the official Social Security Administration website, ssa.gov. That is your primary source of truth. If the SSA announces a policy change, it will be there. Number 2, if you receive SSI, know your current benefit amount, know your direct deposit information, and make sure your contact information with the SSA is up to date. An address change that the SSA doesn't have on file creates problems that have nothing to do with policy. They are just administrative friction. Number 3, if you are in the middle of a disability application or appeal, stay engaged with that process. Do not let fear of future cuts distract you from protecting your current claim. Number 4, stay informed through credible sources. Congressional Budget Office reports, SSA press releases, reporting from established news organizations, policy analysis from reputable think tanks, and yes, channels like this one which commit to accuracy over sensationalism. Number 5, contact your congressional representatives, both your House member and your 2 senators, if you want to make your voice heard on Social Security policy. That is not just your right, it is one of the most effective tools available to citizens in a democratic system. Social Security, in all its forms, including SSI and SSDI, is not just a line item in a federal budget. It is the difference between dignity and destitution for tens of millions of Americans who have done everything right, who worked, who paid into the system, who became disabled through no fault of their own, who are elderly or blind or living with conditions that the rest of us cannot fully imagine. They deserve better than panic. They deserve better than misinformation. And they deserve leaders and commentators who will tell them the truth even when the truth is complicated. The situation in March 2026 is serious. The pressure on the Social Security Administration is real. The policy debates in Washington are real. The risk of administrative deterioration affecting the real-world experience of beneficiaries, that is real. But confirmed, enacted cuts to SSI and SSDI monthly benefits. As of today, that has not happened. Stay informed, stay engaged, and the moment that calculus changes, we will be here to tell you exactly what it means and exactly what you need to know. If this video gave you clarity, please leave a comment below. Tell us what questions you still have. Tell us what you are seeing in your community. We read every comment. And if you know someone who receives SSI or SSDI, share this video with them. Because the best protection against misinformation is access to accurate information. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, because this story is not over, and neither is our coverage of it. We will see you in the next one.